Boom! The left side of Manly High School, where your children attend, collapses from a horrible terrorist act. You don't even tell your boss where you're going as you leave work and rush over to check on your children. And as you pull up, you see your teachers and the students join together in a word of prayer from this horrible terrorist act. Most of us can't imagine this happening. We think this will never happen unless we're in safe environments. But for the children, teachers, and students of Columbine High School in Oklahoma, this became a horrible reality. One of the most vivid pictures that I remember in the catastrophe that happened was a picture of the students and teachers hand in hand saying a word of prayer for the horrible terrorist act that happens. Hi, I'm Veronica Logan, and being heavily involved in ministry at my church and a paralegal of one of the largest law firms in the world, the United States Air Force, I want to point out all the great reasons why prayer in schools should be allowed. But of course, we want to do this without violating the individual rights of a person. Let's talk about our problem. We need to take action immediately. Bringing prayer back to school is going to bring peace to our children. It's going to allow them to be unified with each other. Think about it. Years ago, when you had prayer in school, or maybe just even years ago, our students didn't have to worry about it. You didn't have to worry about sending your children to school and then worried about being stabbed, being beat up badly to where they have to spend hours in the ICU, or even worse, being shot. So, can it get any worse than it is? How were the schools, but not only the schools, but society, when prayer played a part? So what do we need to do? We need to let our voice be heard. Today I'm here to convince you that we need to bring prayer back into schools and keep it in schools for good. I want to talk to you about some major points. I want to talk to you about schools bringing unity to our children. I want to interpret or address the interpretation of the First Amendment. And finally, I want to discuss my personal thoughts and ask questions called for better or for worse. So let's begin by talking about the unity that prayer brings to our students. Prayer. History might tell you that religion brings turmoil and conflict, but it's not the religion that brings the turmoil and conflict, that's the individuals that are involved. Let's talk about things that unify our people. Open and friendly discussions bring unity. Prayer and talk about religion can bring open and friendly discussions. Just imagine a peaceful environment where you can send your children to school and not worry about them being shot or robbed or stabbed or beaten up for no reason. And I'm not even going to be fake about it. Let's be real. Is prayer going to stop all that is happening in the schools around the world? No. But it's going to give a good and central balance to what our children need. They need prayer. It promotes good citizenship. It teaches you to love. It teaches you to help when others are in need. It teaches you to put people over yourself. And it promotes virtuous living. It promotes respect for others. It promotes respect for each other. Honor. Good things that bring good situations into our society. Our schools are raising up the next generation that's going to lead our nation into victory. And we want to promote prayer. 20 years ago, when you had prayer in schools, you didn't think about metal detectors in the school. You didn't think about when you brought your children. Not only did your child have to get patted down, making sure they didn't have any guns or things like that, you got patted down too. You didn't think that this could happen, but it's a reality. And we want to make sure that it stops now. And prayer can do that. Prayer can stop the madness that is going on in schools. It can refocus back to teaching, building, and leading our children, students, to successful lives. Now we're going to discuss that our very nation was built on prayer. The foundation of America as a culture was built on prayer. People prayed all the time in open forums. No one ever said, wait a minute, stop, hold on, time out. You're affecting my constitutional right. Why? Because they weren't. Now they want to separate state and church, and that's fine. But in prayer, let's talk about it the smart way. You don't have to violate people's constitutional rights. You can do it by not violating it. You don't have to make it mandatory. You don't have to make it in a time where it disrupts anyone else. You can just offer times of silence, moments of silence, and times where peace is brought through prayer. You can have students go into a hallway or go into a secret place where they can pray. They can pray openly, or you can ask them if people would want to join in. And if there's any time where students feels that they're not a part of a certain religion or they don't want prayer to be, then they don't have to participate, and you don't have to disrupt their learning environment for you to be able to rely on prayer or allow for prayer in schools. Our very nation was built upon the principles of prayer, and the message hardly even changed. How did this message change? Why did this message change? When did this message change? People who didn't even believe in God or Bible principles or prayer changed this message. They said, hey, hello, we're going to stop prayer. We don't want it. Let's say it violates constitutional rights, and let's take it out immediately. Did we stand up? We need to take a stance. We need to stand up and say, no. They screamed, so let's scream louder to bring it back. They can't say that it was any wrongdoing when prayer was in school. They can't say or point out on their hand all the wrong things that prayer brought to school. It brought unity. It brought selflessness. It brought an ability for kids to grow and learn. And finally, let's talk about the conditions after prayer left schools. According to the ITVS, the school and prayer, the conditions worsened dramatically when prayer was taken from school. We don't see the things that we used to see. Most times, students are even afraid to go to school. So what do? They skip school, they don't learn, and these are the very people that are going to lead our society. But we can't provide an environment for our children to learn, to be successful, to grow, to become good citizens, and to teach children and their children's children and so on. Then where are we going to do it? Prayer is going to bring that back. Prayer is going to allow for us to focus things, to get things together, and to promote a healthy environment so that our children can move forward. So, individuals, you don't have to violate their rights. You can always tell an individual you don't have to participate, but it's there if you need it. So, better or worse, let's talk about it. Violence. Violence has risen significantly after prayer has left school. So I would say worse. Selflessness, or the ability to put yourself under someone else. You want to put people before you. That's worse. Everyone's thinking about me. How can I be better? How can I do this? Or how can I do that? When they should be thinking about how can I help society better? How can I help this person better? How can I help my teacher? How can I help the next person? So, worse. Moral character. What people think of themselves. What people do. What's acceptable in society. That's worse. People are able to do whatever they want to do, have no moral character, and it's because prayer was taken out of schools. Prayer taught moral character. It taught in certain situations that you were to do things over other things. You want to do the good things over the bad things. You want to help over hurt. Respect for authority. First, you need to be taught respect for yourself. Prayer taught to respect oneself, to love oneself, and to love others. Prayer is the motivational tool that pushes respect. In this age, in this era, it's like children just disrespect authority. They have no respect for authority at all. They're not taught, hey, you need to respect your authority figures. They don't even, in most times, respect themselves. So how do you expect them to respect authority figures? Now let's hit our main points. We talked about how unity is one of the main things. We talked about how this very nation was built upon prayer in schools, was built upon an ideal of God, was built upon the fundamental values of prayer. And we also talked about our better or worse segment. Violence, worse. Selflessness, worse. Moral character, worse. Respect for self and authorities, worse. So I encourage you, speak louder. Let's let our voice be able to be heard. Let's get out. Let's promote prayer. Let's bring it back. Let's bring back what used to be in our schools. Let's bring back the good things and the great things that society can bring. And remember, no prayer, no power. Little prayer, little power. But much prayer brings much power. So let's bring prayer back to schools right now. Thank you and have a great day.